In this video, we're going to talk about some of the problems that can happen with your immune system when it doesn't work properly. We'll talk about responding to non-harmful things or allergies. We'll talk about when your immune system doesn't recognize your own cells and attacks your own body, autoimmune problems. And we'll talk about immunodeficiencies where your immune system doesn't respond when it should. Let's talk about allergies first. So an allergic reaction is an immune attack against a non-harmful substance where the reaction itself can damage tissue. It's also sometimes called a hypersensitivity reaction. Allergic reactions are triggered by allergens, which can be things like pollen, pet dander, certain foods, and a whole host of other environmental factors. There are several types of allergic reactions. Type 1 is one type. It's sometimes called an immediate reaction allergy, where the reaction occurs within minutes after the contact with the allergen. And some of the symptoms of this can include hives, hay fever, asthma, eczema, gastric problems like with food allergies, and in severe cases, anaphylactic shock can occur. In a type 2 reaction, or antibody-dependent cytotoxic reaction, where cells are being destroyed, 1 to 3 hours to develop. This could be an example of this could be like a mismatched blood transfusion reaction where your body makes antibodies against a other type of blood, and those antibodies cause those mismatched blood cells to clump up or agglutinate in your body. Type 3 is an immune complex reaction. It can also take anywhere from 1 to 3 hours for it to start to see the symptoms or start to develop. And what happens in this case is the complex between the antibody and the antigen isn't able to be cleared from the body, and that antibody-antigen complex can damage various body tissues. And finally, type 4, or delayed reaction, results from repeated exposure to allergens, where you have eruptions or inflammation of the skin. It can take up to 40 hours for this to occur. Common example of this in healthcare workers is allergies to latex. Other ones might include things like exposure to, say, poison ivy. An autoimmune response or autoimmunity is where your immune system isn't able to distinguish self from non-self. You have proteins on your cells called MHC antigens or HLA antigens, which help your immune system recognize your cells and compare those self antigens to non-self antigens to know which cells to attack. But in the case of autoimmunity, for some reason which we don't fully understand yet, we make antibodies as well as cytotoxic T cells that can attack our own body cells. Those antibodies against our own cells are called autoantibodies. We're going to talk more about those HLA antigens and the genes that code for them, the MHC genes, in the next video when we talk about tissue grafts and organ transplants. In the table you can see some common examples of diseases that we believe are caused by autoimmune problems, things like certain types of arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, myasthenia gravis, Graves' disease, or some that we've covered earlier. Rheumatic fever caused by attacking the valves in the heart, and so on. And finally, immune deficiencies. This is where something is preventing the body's immune system from either developing normally or something is destroying parts of the immune system. And there are two more common ones that we see in humans. The first one, SCIDS, stands for Severe Combined Immune Deficiency Syndrome. This is a genetic disorder. This is a problem with genes that are involved in the development of the immune system. And people with this, their immune system just doesn't ever develop normally, and they're susceptible to all sorts of illnesses and diseases that our body could normally fight off easily, which can be lethal to them. And until relatively recently, they really had to be kept almost in isolation. Whereas today we have medicines that can help to some degree boost their immune system, and they're working on developing gene therapy to treat not only SCIDs but other genetic disorders as well. The second one we're probably more commonly associated with the immune system is AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. Acquired means that it's something that you got from your environment. In this case, it's caused by a virus, the HIV, or human immunodeficiency virus. In this case, the virus attacks a particular group of helper T cells called CD4 helper T cells, and it destroys those helper T cells, and without those helper T cells, the rest of the person's immune system just doesn't function normally, and they can get infected with diseases that don't normally cause problems and can sometimes cause death. Now again, AIDS is never going to be the cause of death directly. It'll be, the cause of death would be some other infection that you got that you would not have gotten and died from had your immune system been functioning normal. Now sometimes there's confusion about being HIV positive versus having AIDS diagnosis, and the difference really is to do with the level of those helper T cells. If those helper T cells drop below a certain level, then that person is said to have AIDS, whereas if it's above that but they can detect the virus, they're HIV positive. And this is a virus that doesn't survive well outside the body. It's only transferred by blood-to-blood contact, at least as far as we know.